Chapter 3 is about expressions and equations, and we are going to talk about in part 3.1 how to identify terms, like terms, and simplify expressions. So here's an expression for you. An expression is just some mathematical numbers, variables written down with no equal sign. If it has an equal sign, it's an equation. Without the equal sign, it's just an expression. Okay, terms are identified as parts of the equation. So one term would be 9x. Another term would be -2. Another term would be 7. Or I could put +7, but remember, I don't have to put that positive sign. That's invisible. Okay, or I have a -x. Okay, those are my terms. Okay, if I'm looking for like terms are those that look similar, that have the same variable raised to the same exponent. So if I'm looking for like terms, I have 9x and -x are like terms. They have the same variable raised to the same exponent, which would be 1. Okay, but remember, that's invisible math. I don't need to put a 1 there. Okay, and I also have a -2 and a +7. Those are like terms. I identify them by doing something different to them. I boxed these. I could have put a double line underneath them. I could have circled them. However you want to identify your like terms. Okay. So now let's talk about simplifying them. Okay. To simplify your expression, you look at your like terms and combine them. So let's look at 9x minus x. Okay, I know that if there's just a variable, there's really a 1 in front of it. That's some of that invisible math that we talk about. Okay, so 9 minus 1 is 8x. Okay, now let's look at the other two like terms I have, which are -2 plus 7. I know from my chapter 1 rules that that is just 5. Okay, so now I have an 8x and a +5. So I could rewrite that as 8x plus 5 or 5 plus 8x. Either way is acceptable. It means the same thing. Let's do this one more time with another expression. One more expression that we are going to simplify. Okay, so I have 3/4 y plus 12 minus 1/2 y minus 6. First thing I need to do is identify my like terms. I have this and this. Those are like terms. And I have a +12 and a -6. Those are like terms. So let's look at this fraction first. I have 3/4 minus 1/2. There's a y there, but I can ignore the y right now. Okay, so I'm going to need to change this to 2/4. Right, to get a common denominator, and 3 minus 2 is 1/4 y. Okay, then I need to look at my other ones. I'm going to change my color just so you see that these are another like term. I have 12 minus 6. Well, that's simple enough. That's just 6. So my final answer is going to be, my final simplification of this expression is going to be 1/4 y plus 6, or 6 plus 1/4 y. However you want to write that, either way is fine. Let's do one more example that has parentheses in it, just to make sure you guys remember how to do parentheses. Remember, I have to do distributive property first. Okay, so to do distributive property, I got to take this 3 times the q and the 3 times the 1. And I'm going to get 3 times q is 3q, 3 times 1 is a +3, and then I'm just going to have this -4. Okay, so now that I have my equation with no parentheses in it, then I can identify my like terms. I have a q, and then I have a 3 and a -4. Okay, so this is pretty simple. The 3q just stays 3q. Okay, and then I have a 3 minus 4, which is -1. So I could write it 3q minus 1, or I could write or sorry, 3q minus 1, or negative 1 plus 3q. Either way works.